Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 683. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the master of speculation, the duke of the sultan of strategery, the bridge defying, is worried because he just got picked up by the CW, but he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Little CW joke just because my heart bleeds over the fact that we're losing so much of our CW stuff. But this episode, we're going to be talking about Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo, issue number 4. We're also going to talk about Batman Spawn. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
Two things I love to say. Box set, 50% off.
Nice.
We have Superman 78, Batman 89 box set, 50% off. $24.99, and if you look at it, the box is made to look like a VHS cassettes. 2 cassettes side by side. Oh my God, that's wonderful. But we also have Teen Titans Go, set number 1, box set, 50% off, only $14.99. Thank you, DCBS.
I've got to have those.
Yes, 100%. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh yes, those are mine.
That's clever. That's really clever. Like the Batman, the Superman one is a no-brainer for me. Like I own them already, as paper editions, but that's exactly how you hook me into buying a box set because I want that on the shelf. Just because it's a great, first of all, they're both great series and great conversation piece. Just having that there, that's cool. I'm all in on that. Over at InStockTrades.com, they always have their deals of the week, and this one's a series that's near and dear to my heart, and I know, Jim, you love this series too. It's the Swamp Thing from the 2021 series, the trade paperback, Volume 3, The Parliament of Gears. It collects issues 11 to 16. This is a $16.99 book, 50% off, only $8.49. This is a great way to pick up this series if you haven't been. 50% off, it's $8.49 for issues 11 to 16 of the series. I mean, that's a steal. 168 pages. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
One of the things that came out this week was Legion of Superheroes. I've done it since I was a kid. I throw the in there and I can't let go of it. But Legion of Superheroes came out. I think we should do this one on the show. If you're up for it, maybe in a couple weeks we'll do like a watch along with Legion of Superheroes. Would you be up for that?
I'm down with that.
Just because we haven't done one of the animated releases in a while. I think it'd be fun just to talk Legion in general. But Jared posted a little trailer from it where it's Bouncing Boy. And he mentioned that he thought that the actor playing Bouncing Boy in the animated series is reprising the role. I hope it's the case because I like the animated series quite a bit. I've started watching this, and I paused it because I'm like, well, let me talk to Jim about if we want to do this on the show, because I'd rather walk into it knowing what we're going to do on that end. As far as these animated releases go, James Gunn did do a clarification about how the animated movies are going to fit into the DCU, and they're going to have ones that are directly connected, and they're going to have ones that are Elseworld still. So I'm hoping that means good things for this format in general, that we'll still get some of these regular releases the way that we've been, because I really like getting a couple of these like classic stories or original stories a year. And I don't want it always to have to be in the new continuity. I want it to pull from comic work like they've been doing, and originals still, because they've done some original ones that have been outstanding that aren't beholden to any continuity.
And you think about it, comic book fans and fans of the comic book genre, the concept of multiverses, concepts of multi-Earths, that kind of stuff is easy, for us to follow.
Yep.
100% comic book readers can 100% jump in it. But even people who aren't comic book readers but are fans of the superhero comic book genre, they get it. They understand that kind of stuff. They need a little bit more explanation when you have two different universes, which ones are connected. But, having the concept of this isn't in the same universe, they get that. So I'm glad to see that they're actually doing this where they're like, hey, it doesn't have to fit in one giant mold. There is the Elseworld. Now, I'm assuming there'll be a little blip commentary about the Elseworlds or multiple Earths or some little comment just to let the Muggles know that this isn't the main universe. But that's all you really need is just a little clip, a little blip in there to as a guide for people. And again, I am glad they're doing this, and I'm happy they're doing this.
There's a really cool Bill Sienkiewicz Batman piece that's Jared Cardo's post on the site, and it's really cool. I'm a big fan of that artwork. I want to remind everyone, too, that Harley Quinn and the Joker Sound Mind is on Spotify. There's actually a comicsbeat.com podcast review about Christina Ricci redefining Harley Quinn in that. They did a Batman story on Spotify, and now they're doing this Harley Quinn and Joker. And the Batman one was fantastic. Harley Quinn and Joker is one that I just started listening to, and it's really, really good. I'm glad to see more of these audio pieces going forward, and I hope as this new DCU continues that they continue doing these kind of things too, because I think DC product being available in multimedia is really important. I want to see it in different places. And I think it hits different audiences, right? You and I go after audio in very different ways. And I think that's okay. I tend to really like, during my morning drive, listening to audio stories. So this is right up my alley. Whereas for you, it's harder for you to listen to things like this based on your workflow.
Well, yeah, I don't have a morning drive anymore. I work from home. My morning drive is when I walk from my bedroom into my office and fire up the computer. That's my morning commute. So, and again, with really good stuff like this, I stop working. I'll stop working. I'll just listen. So I've got to be careful what I have playing while I'm working. And even like some songs, sometimes there's certain music I can't listen to while I'm working because I stop working. And I just focus on the song. I just focus on what I'm listening to. I've got a list of just things that I can have playing in the background, and I'm okay with. And it doesn't disrupt me working. And the dead silence throws me off as well. So I need some noise going on. But it's interesting on what I can do, what I can't do. Certain things, yes. All of these Spotify stories, all these oldie time radio kind of stuff, and any of that stuff 100% pulls me in from working. So I can't listen to it while I'm working. I got to find time else time to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm that way too. It's stories I can't listen to at work. I can listen to, strangely enough, I can listen to like talk radio. Yep. And that type of podcast where it's talking about topics and things because of the fact that it's not an ongoing story. But a story, I just can't do it. I can't. It distracts me from work, so I won't listen to it for that reason. But there's times where I'm like doing tedious work. I'll use it from a tech end. Like there's times where I was doing things like getting Chromebooks ready for classrooms and things like that, where I can have something on in the background, and often like to have something on in the background. To your point, to keep from the monotony of it, and I can listen to any kind of talk, related things like that. But stories, no, I can never listen to at that point. Those are strictly for my car ride. And strangely enough, yard work. When I'm cutting the lawn, stuff like that, I got noise canceling headphones. I love my stories then. I can be out there doing yard work all day long to my heart's content when I've got a story running. James William Stubbs and Everett Starr shout out the new Wildcat series, which they were talking about just how good it's been so far. I'm really enjoying that. I think that's a great series, and I'm glad to see it getting some love on our Facebook group because it's well worth reading. If you haven't read Wildcats before, you don't need to know anything to jump into this series, and highly recommend it. The Flash, we're in this final season, and we've got Rick Cosnett, Matt Letcher, and Jessica Parker Kennedy are all reprising their roles for the final season. I'm glad to see that this is going to be like a proper conclusion to the Flash series, because it's been great. So I've already pre-ordered it on iTunes. I know the first episode's available on it right now. I like having them I get my email, new episodes listed, and that's the way I'm digesting that show. And I like without the commercials, just kind of go on through.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, and the commercials do sometimes throw me off, to be honest with you. And I'm doing more watching where either I've recorded it where I can fast forward through it, or I'm doing it this way where I don't have any commercial interruptions.
Yeah, well, I find too that shows like this I use when I work out, and it's really nice to just be able to plop it on and not have to fast forward.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reasons for the purchase, is it's nice to do that. And I know that I will go back and rewatch this show.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that's worth owning. So Disney's doing a new thing now. They're exploring the sale of more films and TV series to rivals, and they're talking about streaming rivals, things like that. I think it's a good sign for streaming, in the sense that it's a great sign for these programs too, because one of the things that we've been talking about a lot lately has been the cost of films, the cost of these programs. The only way these things will work and can keep being sustainable is if there's a profit. And I think as I'm looking at DC's plan, one of the things I like about the plan being at least a couple years down the road now, because it's 2025 they're talking about this, is trying to navigate this. I was on Comic Geek Speak recently, and I'm not going to rehash everything that I talked about over there. I listened to the episode, but we were talking more about this, the whole DC. It actually builds off our episode where I deliberately tried to make sure that I didn't rehash things that I said on our episode, so that way anybody who listens to both will feel like they're getting something that builds off of a continued discussion about this. But one of my big things is I don't think we've figured out yet how people are digesting content. And I think that's going to be something that is continuing to evolve over the next couple years. So we'll see what that's going to look like. We've got the Adventures of John Kent coming from the Dawn of DC.
Yep.
And I'm excited to see this. So it's interesting when we start taking a look at books like this. What do you think about this being a miniseries?
Well, I'm loving it because it's going to be. It reads like it's going to be a really cool John Kent story, and I hope it leads to ongoing John Kent as Superman.
It worked for Poison Ivy.
Say again?
I'm sorry. It worked for Poison Ivy.
Exactly. And I think I would love to see an ongoing John Kent Superman story, whether they take the current Superman title and say that's John Kent and Action Comics is Clark. Cool. Or if they say Adventures of Superman John Kent and continue it as an ongoing. Perfect. Give me more of this. Add to it your creative team on this. Yes, 100% all in on this. You hear the clippets of the story. Oh, my God, yes, I want to see the confrontation between John Kent and Ultraman. 100%, please, let's do this, man. I'm all for it. I'm really looking forward to reading what happens and what plays out of this. So, yeah, when I see stuff like this, I do a little happy dance. And then I hope, please, give me, feed me more. If not in an ongoing, say later on, let's do another limited run. Let's do another limited series and just continue on the story. Because John, for me, 100% supports his own book. Not just him as Superman, but John Kent. I want to see just a story solely focused on him. An ongoing solely focused on him.
My wife and I started watching Harley Quinn. We watched the first episode of it because she likes some of these irreverent animated series when they're coming on. So we'd never watched Harley Quinn together. So we watched the original first episode from season 1. And remember how kind of we had that feeling out process with that first episode? She's kind of in that place. I'm going to be curious to see if we end up continuing to watch that together. What's drawing me to that is we've got the Harley Quinn, a very problematic Valentine's Day special with Hawkman and Hawkgirl in it. So I'm wanting to jump to watching that because I've watched enough that I'm ready to. But if I'm going to watch the show with her, I kind of like to go back and watch it with her and then catch as many of the episodes fresh with her, just because it's fun to do it that way. So it's going to be interesting to see if she gets into it or not. But I'm thrilled to see that we've got continued voice cast for that one. I'm hoping that one, or I should say animation like that, continues to stick around. I think we're going to get stuff like that from the comments about there being Elseworld style animation still.
Oh, definitely. I think, from what it seems to me, like this isn't just, they're not dealing with animation just for the kids. They recognize that people our age enjoy the animation. We actually, you think back to, we're up there in years now. We're on the plus side of 50. And we're their I would say we're their primary target on this versus younger people. So they're going to give us they're going to continue giving this type of entertainment level, this type of adult content, without going overboard. But it's just got that nice, really good balance on what they can do and what they can get away with. I think 100% we're going to continue seeing stuff like this.
So I like James Gunn's really having a lot of conversations about how just multimedia plays into this, what his role is, that he's not going to solely dictate the new DC universe, that, there's a team working on this. I like that video games, he's like, you don't have to be playing the video games to do it. I've always assumed that the way video games were going to play into this is that they were going to be side stories or in-between stories, or where they would flesh out the universe stories, kind of like what we get with the comics with one-shots and things like that.
Yeah.
But that you can completely follow the universe without it, without playing the video games. And I think that's an important way to go about it. I like the idea that we're going to get video games that are set in this new DCU. I think that's cool.
Yeah, good call on their part. And again, that was something I think when we talked about it, we both were thinking you wouldn't need it.
Right.
But you'll play the game and I'll find it on YouTube and watch through. And I'll watch somebody else play the game, So we were both covered on that. And good to know that, again, confirmation, information. When he first stepped in, there was all this, the sky is falling.
Right.
He's letting us know the sky is not falling. It's okay. We have a plan. And those words are the biggest calming factor in my brain right now when you hear we have a plan. And it's not just a 1 month plan. It's a 10-year plan on what they're doing. It's not going to be the Marvel model, which good. You don't need to do the exact same thing. Do your plan. I want your plan. I don't want you trying to recreate something somebody else did. Give me what you want to do. And I'm happy. And they're giving us enough details where I am in a really calm place, with all my anxieties and whatnot. So I'm happy right now. So yay, keep it up, man. Good job. Outstanding.
Terry Moore is one of my favorite artists and favorite storytellers in general. And he has a Kickstarter that's been out there called Terry Moore After Dark. It's for an art book of his. But if you haven't read Terry Moore's work, boy, do I urge you to do it. Not only is he a very talented artist with a DC background, he's done some DC storytelling, Birds of Prey in particular. But if you haven't read any of his creator-owned work, oh my gosh, he is so incredibly talented. Jared's posting this, and first of all, anybody, please, if you've got Kickstarters that you're following that you want to shout out to our Facebook group members, please post those in there. I love supporting Kickstarters because it's a great way to get the word out about comic creators' works. And honestly, if you're interested in it, I'm going to be interested in it. So I like to know what anybody's following. Jared posted again some great artwork from Francesco Francavilla, and apologies for if any name butchery there, but it's gorgeous Batman art. And I love that it's different versions of Batman. Everything from the 60s Batman to Batman Beyond to what looks like the Batman the Animated Series and various comic book versions. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I really like when I see stuff like this. It's kind of neat.
Nightwing 100 completely sold out and is getting a second printing. I like those announcements for just a lot of reasons. I think it's a good sign for comics that we're selling out. Oh,
amen. That's the thing that paper is endangered species. Is an endangered species. Mm-hmm. And that's not even just in comic books. Everything. newspapers, magazines, all that stuff is going online, going digital. And when you see news like this, that always makes me happy.
I'm curious, I'm sort of curious as to, and I don't want to get depressed by it, what is considered a print run these days?
Yeah.
And compared to what they used to be. Lee Moder, the comic artist and co-creator of Stargirl, has died, and that's always sad news. I hate hearing about any comic talent who has passed away, just because, it's, first of all, you look back and start appreciating some of their work, maybe things that you loved, but also things that you haven't read before. But it also means, selfishly, we're not going to get any more work from that amazing talent. They're people that have contributed to our enjoyment and storytelling over the years. But my heart goes out to his family and anybody close to him, because just a great talent. And boy, Stargirl, what a creation, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And again, it's one of those weird things with me and when I read about a comic book creator, because I do not have like a personal connection with a lot of them. I only know them through the page work. I only know them through their arc or their story they're told. And it's kind of like with wrestlers. I know them. I've never met these people before, but you get a feeling, you can understand who they are just by by their passion, by the by their work. And you feel bad. It's that you want to celebrate life. You want to celebrate the wonderful things they did for you. But then you are thinking, I'll never get any new content again. I'll never see a new book, artwork, anything done by this guy again. And you feel it's that old saying, Disney. I think it was Disney who had it, who said, "Don't cry because I'm gone. Laugh because I was here." And I try to hold on to that ideology with artists and creators and various entertainment people who I never had a personal connection with, I never had a personal interaction with, but I feel like I had a personal connection with them just through their work.
So Omnibus and it's Global Comics, and the sites are omnibus.app and globalcomics.com. They're both entering into the digital comic space. They are going to be producing publishing comics from known publishers. They're also another vehicle for people to get their books published, which I think is great. I'm glad to see more entering the space of digital comics, just so there's more choice out there. We've both talked lately about our love-hate relationship with Comixology/Amazology. And I'm not ready to abandon ship on that platform by any stretch. I've got so much content there. Actually, there's a lot that I love about it, and I feel like it's continuing to improve. But it took a step back when they did this relaunch, and I know that they've been making cuts to staffing relating to that, which I always get worried about, because are you going to be keeping up the app? What does this mean for the future of it? I don't love the store experience either. I'm getting better at navigating it. Are you? I mean, do you feel like it's a little easier now to navigate?
Not easier, but I'm getting used to it. So yeah. It's nothing I would say easy isn't never a word I would use, but when you start understanding how to do it, and it's less of a headache, because I know how to do it. I'm like, I know I've found this before.
Isn't that easier?
Well, I guess, yeah. I guess you could call it easier. I'm just trying to be difficult. All right? I don't want to give them credit for
No, but here, actually, let me pull back, though, and actually, you're making an excellent point. Let me validate some of what you're saying. I'm not going to say that it's easy either. I think it's better than it was. Like, before, it was a very frustrating experience. Now I feel like I understand how to navigate it more, which does make it easier than it was before. And that's where I was going. That's really where I was going with it. You're making a valid point, though, and I don't want to water down what you're saying here. It's still not. Like, before, I really liked it. Now I feel like there's a difference between understanding how to navigate it and liking it.
Right. And they haven't made any changes. It's just me relearning how to do stuff.
You've made changes.
I've had to make changes. They haven't.
Yeah.
If they made changes and made things easier, I mean, it'd be much better. But again, it is what it is. And I like seeing, though, these new companies that are coming out there. I think that's going to be the big thing we're going to get. That's going to be the next big movement in the comic book universe, where it's instead of, everybody talks about how paper is going to go away. Yes, it will. But it'll rise up these other digital platforms. There's going to be comic book companies that are 100% pure digital.
Yeah,
they'll have no paper at all. You want to get it, you have to go they'll either do a download, you have to do direct download from them, or they'll do one of these other spaces, maybe Amazology, you'll be able to get it, but that's going to be the big dramatic change, I think. And when that happens again, the first person who's hit hard on that are the comic shops. The second are the physical paper printers, because that in itself is a whole industry that is getting hurt big time by the removal of physical books.
Yep.
My niece, she my brother moved from Italy, and she's transferred obviously schools. Her new school doesn't have any textbooks.
Wow.
It's all on the iPad or whatever thing they have. That's where all this stuff. She has no physical textbooks. So right there, that's a whole school that has 0 books, 0 printing, 0 paper.
Which is a big shift.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm a big fan of digital. Like, I enjoy digital. I like ownership too, though. And I think one of the things I'm becoming more and more aware of, especially so we talk about how Comixology has changed, and they're making cuts over at Amazon towards Comixology. My question, and we already had comic series that didn't wrap up on Comixology because of the change, where they were independent series that did not get a chance to continue on, or are no longer available for new purchase. I look at that and I'm like, well, paper, physical does not have that problem, right? I like ownership. We talk about with some of the comics that we're talking about on this episode. There are books that, yes, I started reading on DC's app, but then I wanted to own them. I wanted them day and date, and I bought them digitally. But, for me, the collector's mentality has not gone away because I'm doing it digitally. And that's the piece that really I don't love about digital, is the sense that, okay, yeah, now I feel like I own it, sure, and I feel like Amazon's a safe bet, sure, but I'm worried about the fact that, what happens if they change their philosophy and certain things aren't available and I'm not able to finish my collection on there. I want to be able to, I want to continue collecting comics for the rest of my life. How much of this stuff am I going to have to rebuy?
Yes, I know. That is something I do wonder about.
and I know I will. Comic shops are really a worry of mine because I still love supporting comic shops. Every month I buy from DCB Service. Our sponsors on our show are, we're lucky enough and fortunate enough that over the years we've had sponsors we actually use. And everybody, if you go through the history of the show, we've had some change in sponsors over the years, but DCB Service has been with us by far the longest. And I shop there. I love shopping there, and always will continue shopping there for as long as they're around. But I love the locals that are near me and going in. And I like physical product. I like owning stuff. It's an interesting sort of time, as a comic book fan, as far as this continued evolution into digital and what it means for us as fans. I'm very worried about not the medium being around, because I think it's an artistic delivery method that will continue to be around. I just think the navigating right now, how to even jump into comics, is an interesting sort of thing. I don't want to be gloom and doom on that, because I think that for somebody who is already digitally adept, it's easy to jump into the digital world of comics. So, and it may be easier to jump into the digital world of comics than it is for me, who has been used to paper his whole life. But go ahead.
Look at me, dude. How when all this stuff was first coming out, I was the guy who was like, no, I need my books, I need my paper.
Yeah.
And between the two of us, you were much more embracing of it. Now, I read more stuff on iZilla than I read physical paper. And I've got stuff that I get iZilla as well as physical paper, and the physical paper is simply bag boarded and put away, and I read it on iZilla. So it's, I've 100% done a big shift on my purchases where I'm getting so much more digitally. And when I look at, the paper stuff, I'm looking at the collected editions and things like that. My big oversized absolutes or hardcovers, or the deluxe hardcover, and then later the absolute on the same book. It's stuff like that. So it's, I've done a dramatic 180 on what I'm doing. So there is just going to be an evolution of this, and hopefully, it doesn't hurt too many people. That's my big fear on who gets hurt.
The collector in me is glad. Boy, dude, I have more truly mint comics now than I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah,
because before my concept of near mint was one or two fingerprints.
Yeah.
Now, like this stuff is like pristine. It's never been touched because of the fact that I have the digital version. I like having the paper version. I like having the collection. I mean, there's many series that, to me, keeping the collection going is great. Omnibuses and hardcovers, though, you hear me talking about them more on the ads, and it's not because I don't value the monthlies. It's more of what I'm buying. And I like to do ads on the show for things that I'm buying because I feel the enthusiasm's genuine, because it is. I mean, these are things that I'm actually interested in buying. And the purpose of pointing you to the site is, this is where I shop. This is what I'm buying at the shop. Look around and find the things that you're looking for at this site. I think there's something to having an ad that's genuine, because it's really what I'm doing. I'm not just saying it because they happen to be a sponsor. So it's an interesting sort of thing, this digital evolution as we go through it. Witches, which is a great comic series, is being adapted into an Amazon animated series. I think that's one of the things right now that I'm really enjoying, is the fact that, my gosh, the comic content, and we talked a little bit on CGS, and I'll save it, for you to listen there, about burnout and what is there really burnout, and what we consider that. So listen to that for that. But I love new stuff coming on, and I think, boy, my gosh, that is a series. If you've read the series and you're listening to this, that's a series that certainly would benefit greatly from being an animated feature, especially on Amazon, where they can just hit it out of the park.
Yeah. So, thank you for posting that, because I had no idea about any of this, to be honest, and I don't even know the series that they're talking about. And I love when we get stuff posted like this. I'm like, what is that? I wonder if I would like that.
Yeah. Flash is going to have, and actually by the time you listen to this, this will have aired at the Super Bowl. There's a debut, I'm inventing new words. There's a time that's set for the reveal of the Flash's new trailer, which is going to be during kickoff time for the Super Bowl, that we get to see that. I'm hearing good things about this. So fingers crossed that this movie ends up delivering. And because I'm very excited to see it. I'm hoping that it winds up being as good. My gosh, talk about a movie that seems to be bulletproof. I mean, my gosh, what more controversial, the DC extended universe that was out there is not a thing anymore. This movie survived. Controversy after controversy, this thing has survived. Apologies from the lead actor and all that, which is usually the kiss of death. This thing has survived. This seems to be the movie that could. I hope it's everything that they're saying it's going to be, because I love The Flash. And I've got to say, what has me jonesing for this was the Snyder cut of Justice League, because you got to see more of the Flash, an expanded story of the Flash there. And I found that I really enjoyed his Flash a lot more in that extended cut. You and I are both of like the same mindset as far as there's things to like about both versions of that Justice League movie. For me, I really liked the presentation of the Flash better in the more expanded Snyder cut version of it for him. And that has me excited for this. Definitely.
And it's, I think last week we were just talking about with advertisements for stuff, and because we were talking about advertisements for Shazam.
Right.
So glad to see they're getting a Super Bowl ad. And if it's right around kickoff, that means that's a premium time slot. That's going to be ridiculous, expensively time slot. So I'm glad to see they're putting the money down and into this trailer because, again, Super Bowl kickoff, that's huge money.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great, and I'm excited. My criticism of the character in the original version was it was almost too silly, and I'm a big fan of the Flash, and I love the comedy aspect of the Flash, and I thought that the Justice League, the Snyder Cut, really kind of kept the humor, but also brought like a balance to his story.
Yeah.
And that was something that I really needed.
They gave more time to Flash and Cyborg,
yes,
which was needed to help flesh them out. So they weren't so, in the theatrical version, they're very, just one-sided, one-dimensional. Mm-hmm. The Snyder Cut, because they had more time, you got a little bit layering on who these guys are. Now, again, we've talked about it multiple times. There are scenes from the theatrical version that I absolutely love that weren't in the Snyder Cut. So I'm like, there is a give and take on my end on each of those. But yeah, I'm 100% looking forward to seeing this. Looking forward to seeing the commercial for it. So kind of curious as to how it's going to play out. And I'll be watching it with family. It'd be interesting to see if my dad gets a reaction to the actual trailer, because usually he just nothing. The movie trailers don't faze Dad. He doesn't go, wow, I got to watch that movie. So I'm curious to see if this one gives him anything.
Poison Ivy, which this is something we talked about when this series was originally launched, that we were hoping it would be an ongoing. It is.
Yep.
And I love that this is happening, because when I look at the John Kent series that's coming out and things like that, I was hoping that some of these limited series would launch into something a little more extended. This is a great series. So it went from a 12-issue series now, and I think it was a 6 originally that went to a 12 and then became an ongoing. And I might be wrong on the progression of that. But I am thrilled that it's an ongoing, because it is a terrific, terrific series. If you haven't been reading this and you've got the app, do yourself a favor and jump on it and check it out. G. Willow Wilson is a terrific writer, really gets these characters, and it's just been a great, great series. We'll have to talk about that in an upcoming episode.
Definitely.
We'll jump in on that.
We definitely got to jump back in, because we talked, I think, the first issue of it.
Yeah.
And that was about it. So, yeah, I'm nodding my head in agreement on everything you just said there. Love the fact that, again, this does give me hope on the John Kent. This gives me hope on a lot of stuff that are right now limited series. If things are picking up, they're recognizing, going, hey, let's make this an ongoing. So thank you for making this an ongoing series. Pick this up, people. 100% recommend it, because it's absolutely brilliant story, beautiful look to it. Yeah, 100% happy with this.
So the teaser poster for The Flash is up there, and we've already talked about The Flash, but the one thing I do love is the Batwing hanging over there. It's really cool to see that. The poster looks really good. I hope this delivers. This last piece, and it's a perfect way to kind of end this, and actually I'll end it with something that is kind of personal to me. So comics are a gateway drug to literacy, and Art Spiegelman wrote that. So this past week I've been filling in as principal. I'm a tech director in my school district. I'm actually in charge of transportation and food service, too, and school safety. That's my regular job. But one of our principals out, and I happen to have an elementary license, so I'm filling in for him for the week. So I'm back at the school that I taught at for 15 years. So they had a book fair when I kicked in this week. What was great to see the amount of kids that were going into the book fair and buying books. Some of the books that were flying off the shelf were comics. Nice. And so to the point of paper, and there needing to be paper, that's what's at book fairs. And I was glad to see the trades that were there of, modern comics that were geared towards a younger, and this is K-2. So our youngest kids are still into this. And I was geeking out and living vicariously through them. The sense of wonder. That wasn't all they were pulling. They were pulling novels and, kids, appropriate stuff for ages K-2. They were pulling as well. But they had a really nice lineup, and part of that was on there was the storytelling medium that is comics. And there was a lot there that was from Scholastic. that was available for kids in the comic. And I really, really loved that was a thing. So I was geeking out. It's a great way to end kind of this segment, is just to talk about that particular piece and just to say how much as a fan, I was like, oh, that's gotta be so cool to go to a book fair now and walk out with that. And I was living through the kids and the smiles on their faces they were walking out with, especially when they were picking up comics. I was like, all right. I admit I walked in and watched a little bit just because I was loving seeing them picking them up.
Did you read any? Did you pick up any?
I let them do it, not because I didn't want to. It was more of the, to me, it was, books were flying off the shelf. Like, there was a lot of shelves that had tags on them where kids were able to, like, there was one copy left and kids were able to say, I still want that. And they were ordering additional copies of that book. And that happened a lot with the comics that were there. So it was great to see kids, that there were certain books, book series and things that the kids were jumping on, and certain comics that the kids were really into. I love that book fairs are still a gateway to that for kids. Very cool.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Our first discussion this episode is going to be the Batman Spawn Special, written by Todd McFarlane, pencils by Greg Capullo, inks by Todd McFarlane, colors by Dave McKeag, letters by Tom Napolitano, main covers by Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane, and Dave McKeag, variant covers by Gabrielle Delotto, Sean Murphy, Dave Stewart, Francesco Mattina, J. Scott Campbell, and Sabine Rich, Greg Capullo and Todd McFarlane, Greg Capullo, Todd McFarlane, and Brian Haberlin, Brett Booth, Sandra Hope, and Ivan Nunes, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Alex Sinclair, Jorge Jimenez, Jason Fabak, and Brad Anderson, Todd McFarlane, and FCO Placencia. Inks assist by Jonathan Glapian, Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. And apologies for any name butcheries. So this is interesting. I remember when the original 2 Spawn crossovers came out, and they've been collected quite recently in some deluxe editions. So if you didn't read them, there was one published by DC and there was one published by Image, and they were 2 different stories. And it was really cool. At the time, Spawn was really hot, and I'm not saying that Spawn's not, a great character now or not, but I mean, it was at a time where it was like, you're taking this Image giant and a DC giant and putting them together. And these kind of crossovers were not something that was a regular occurrence, and still isn't to this day. So the idea of going back and doing another one of these, it was great. The reason why we're doing this now is this came out during, the height of Dark Crisis. And it was really something where I got it. I just never got around to reading it. And I did, and wanted to talk about it just because I think it's fun to talk about these 2 characters and, more importantly, our history with them. So for me, Spawn was one of those characters when he first came out, when the character, it was part of that whole Image boom that came. And Spawn I was very high on Todd McFarlane. I really liked his work on Batman, loved his work on Spider-Man. Because it was, he did these amazing runs as an artist and then a writer and an artist on Spider-Man with some just really great stories. So I was very into his art. The idea of him creating a character from the ground up and it having like this kind of supernatural kind of horror vibe to it was everything I was looking for at the time. He's a character that I've read on and off for years. They had, Angela was this character created by Neil Gaiman and was a part of the whole Spawn universe. There was just a lot to the character. And it's a character that every time I've read the character, I've really liked the character. Anytime I've left, it's usually been budgetary reasons or time reasons that I just haven't gotten back. But I've liked him in live action films. There's been he was in Soul Calibur video game. It's animated series. It's a character that's been around that I've always enjoyed, but it's been kind of a casual enjoyment. What's your history with this character, Jim?
Well, okay, so Spawn was in the 90s, and I'm pretty sure it was during the college years. And I can't remember, I want to say it was my buddy Hoach from BG who said, hey, I think you'd like this. Because I remember somebody physically handing me the book saying, I think you would like this. That's when I, read Spawn #1, and then I, promptly went out and got a copy of myself, and I started collecting the first run of Spawn. I probably have through 20s, in the 20s, and then for whatever reason, I think it got too weird for me, where I was just like, I don't know, or it could have been a monetary thing. I'm not exactly sure why, but I stopped reading it, and I just, it was one of those books that I read. I was like, yeah, and again, they were right. I did enjoy it. I thought this was kind of a neat story, neat look to it. I was digging how, as the mythos of Spawn and all that stuff was growing up, I was, as it was like, coming alive. I was like, I was enjoying the story being told, but I was never, after eventually I stopped reading it, and I never really went back to it. When the movie came out, I saw the movie. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. Didn't really go, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Never, it didn't pull me back into reading Spawn. Every so often I'd see images of the Team Spawn that's out there, or the different Spawn characters. I had no idea if they were the same guy with a different look, or if they were different Hell Spawns, or what their story was. I never really went back into Spawn again after I stopped reading it. And it's one of it. And if you ask me, why did you stop reading it, Jim? I don't have a good answer for you. Like, there's certain books I can tell you flat out, I didn't have the money for it. Mm-hmm. All right, or like I just kind of went a different route, or because like I was so heavy into the X books, I stopped reading the X books because I didn't have money to get everything. So I backed off of comics. Was when I was like, I'm just going to back off the comics, because I didn't have money for it.
Did that impact, Jim? When you talk about something like that, did that impact like comics overall? Did you like get this kind of like frustration of like, okay, can't afford the X books, so I'm not going to read other comics too? Did it have that impact on you?
Oh, big time. One of the reasons I stopped reading comics was because, I got in the mindset of I can't read everything I want, so I'm not going to just read one thing.
Yeah.
And it really did kind of stop me from reading. It was one of the reasons I stopped collecting comics altogether, and then I got back into it with the podcast, and the rest, as we know, is history. On that, I'm not going back to collecting books again, but it was, like with Spawn, though, I really can't give you a definitive reason why I stopped reading it, because I was still reading books after I stopped reading Spawn. It's just like Spawn didn't make the chopping block, and I can't give you an answer why, because it's a long time ago. The mind doesn't work as well as it used to, but I don't remember. I don't have a definitive moment where I said, I'm done reading Spawn. But I read it, and when I was initially reading it, I really enjoyed Spawn. I thought this was a cool character, and it just stopped reading it. And it's funny with this crossover, when they first announced it, we talked about it. I was like, oh, yeah, that looks kind of cool. I wasn't like, oh, my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Can't wait. I had no excitement to read it. I had that same kind of feeling towards the announcement. And, when we started talking about, hey, let's do this, I'm like, oh, okay. Then I bought the book because, I was going to use the app, and I was like, yeah, I'll just get the book, and, because it's easier for me to read it when I bought it, versus going through when I'm doing it through the library sometimes when we're recording. So I was like, I'll just pick it up. It's funny how in reading the book, I remembered why I enjoyed his storytelling so much. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying I'm going to go out and run out and buy all the Spawn stuff and all that, because the character itself is interesting, but it's not like, Superman.
Okay.
But the creative team is amazing, and I really love the story he crafts. And I think that, this was the big thing. This book really reminded me how much I enjoyed his storytelling.
Yeah, that was what I was going to wonder. I thought this was kind of an interesting one to do because of the fact that you and I weren't really talking a lot about it, even with each other, saying like, hey, this is a book that we need to talk about. And I think it's interesting where you've got like two characters that are crossing over that are big characters. Spawn's a big character. Spawn's a name that's known. And it's interesting because I figured we both had at least some history with the character. You mentioned the other Spawns before. If you're thinking of the Spawns that at least the other Spawns that you're talking about, they are different characters. And I've followed the universe on and off enough that I won't say like I'm super well versed in it, but I find it very enjoyable. And I keep coming back to it. So Spawn is something, well, I will say I'm a casual reader. I am drawn to the world. There's a lot of comics that fall into that category. You talked about something interesting that I went through in my life, too, where I hit the point where, through reading, and I hate to throw X books in there because it seems to be kind of an easy, low-hanging fruit to go, oh my gosh, there's so many X books. But it's from a financial standpoint, that's what pulled me away from the X books for a while, because it was like Pokemon. I wanted to read them all. Yes. and when I couldn't read them all, it was very frustrating to me. So as a reader, it was kind of like, which is, I'll say for myself, this isn't commenting on you, it's commenting on me. It's kind of dumb because there were enough of those books that you could follow, like I could follow Wolverine and really enjoy Wolverine. But I had the same problem on the DC end, where books that were crossing over, I was getting frustrated because I felt like I was stuck to reading one line within a comic company, versus being able to read, you reference them as palate cleansers. I like reading some different characters. So I had a period where it was college years. I had very little budget. Was driving an old beater car that was, sucking up a lot of my money, and was really focused on school and trying to get, school done and get out, and kind of, it was when I had decided on teaching, and I'm like, I really want to, head forward to this. And I was real serious and focused. And I still wanted to read comics. So what I did was, through my Christmas money, I took my Christmas money and I bought 2 comic subscriptions. It's the only time in my life where I spent like a year where I was just getting them in the mail through like direct from the company comic subscriptions. And at the time I was reading Flash and Starman, and not even Batman. Now, the year, like my year away from Batman, I went back and got all the issues that I missed. So, I mean, let's be clear. I say a year away. It was a year where I wasn't reading because I didn't have it. It's one of the only times I can think of since the 80s, where I wasn't consistently reading Batman even. But I picked Starman and I picked The Flash because they were single books. And they were great stories. They were characters that I really adored, and very different. Starman had more of that dark kind of edgy, whereas The Flash was kind of a lot of what you love about Superman. A lot of what we love about The Flash right now was in that book. So I was getting a lot of the kind of story, and they were big stories. Both of them had big stories going on. So I was following those. Image had like this period where I was dabbling in Image. And Spawn was one of the books. There were some, like I was reading Wildcats. I read Wetworks. I really enjoyed the Image output, and I liked what they were doing. So, I was really enjoying seeing the art and the storytelling. And you reference it here with this crossover. I didn't know what to expect from this. I didn't know, was this going to build off of the previous crossovers, or was this going to be a completely, start to finish story that was really accessible? And it is. So anybody listening to this, if you haven't read this is really accessible. Like, it's meant to be like a kicking off 2 parallel storylines between Al and Bruce. It's an Elseworlds for both of sorts. And I would say Batman in particular, where it's following it's very close to our universe. And correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, Jim, but I think it's very close to our universe, but there's some variation on it, because the parallel is Martha, Bruce's mom, and Al's wife, both of whom are murdered. These two are being pitted against each other by dark forces, who are trying to have them battle it out. And it's really interesting to see how they're being pitted together, and they're using these two emotional tethers, these emotional bonds, to pit them against each other. And I really liked that story. I liked the idea of taking 2 people that were part of the foundational reason why they are who they are, pitting them against each other from that reason.
Oh, yeah. And that's a kind of a neat little concept. Again, when this thing first started, I was like, huh? Yeah. Again, I was like, meh. Yeah, just because I wasn't excited on Spawn. And within the first couple pages, they start with that comparison between the 2 of them, how they're both basically born out of tragedy, out of darkness, and how they're both trying to, rise up, and it was kind of a neat, just comparison of the 2 characters that had me going, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. just to look at them. But one of the things that really did hit home for me was usage of artwork within the storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's something that is, again, all books do this, and the books that really tell a wonderful story, you have a great synergy between the creative, between writing and art, and, with this one, we have some really good usage of that. And it just had that great feel and vibe, because both characters really do fit well together. And I thought that for me was something, it was kind of neat on just this whole comparison of how they each have their own quirks. They each have their own adversity. They were each born out of, basically tragedy, the death of someone they loved, and it's weird on paper. If you try to compare a love a child has to the mother to a love a husband has to a wife, it is a different type of love, but it is still that same type of connection, that same type of just that visceral nature. And I'm going back to pulling into my brain with some of the Spawn stuff from the very original stuff. I'm remembering when he first became Spawn, it was all about Wanda. It was all about that love, that connection that he had to the world that kept him going, that kept the character growing, and let him hold on to his humanity side of it and not go full hell Spawn. And I think that for me was kind of a neat just reminder in the very beginning of this first couple pages. If you never read Spawn, you're getting a good introduction onto who this guy is. And obviously if you've never read Batman, same kind of deal. You're getting a good groove on who he is. So I thought that for me was a nice balance on this.
I like that his view, he's being clouded, he's being manipulated, Spawn I'm talking about, into looking at Batman as this beast that is the key to unlocking Wanda's soul. He has this assumption that Batman's, at least going in, is something non-human. And it really is the justification. And I really like this. You learn a lot about Spawn and how his powers work and, when he's really jacked up and when he's not. And when he realizes that he's dealing with humanity versus something of the supernatural, it's almost like his human side takes over and he's depowered, in the sense that he's not quite able to tackle into that, powered self, the supernatural self. And I really liked that being a part of the story. It is. I haven't read Spawn in a while. It was nice to get this kind of like an idea of what the rules look like in this book. And it's gorgeous. The artwork of this story is really, really terrific. It's important for it to make you care about both characters because there's going to be people that are Batman readers that are coming at this. There's some people that are Spawn readers that are coming at this. There's going to be people that have been regularly reading both. And you have to appeal to all those audience bases in a story. And that's hard to do because, I left this with a very good feeling about both characters and their handling of it and the use of villains. I thought the Court of Owls being like a catalyst of all this was a great idea. And it made for a great look for the book as well. Boy, did I like their use of Alfred in this. Alfred is just such a terrific character. I don't know what it'll take to get this character back into the comics again on a regular basis. Please make it happen. I'll take zombie Alfred at this point. Like the zombie one that we had recently.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead and like somehow make him like a thing.
Yes. Well, I'll be honest with you. One of the things I did want to talk about was just every time I see Alfred usage, I'm always happy, especially when you get Alfred right.
Yes.
They did a really good job with Alfred in this book. And again, it does show, I'm enjoying the story that they're telling about them dealing with the aftermath of not having an Alfred and how it affects all the different Bat family members in a way. And so, but like you, I really do want a return of Alfred. And when you see him used correctly in the book and you see just him and Bruce's interaction, it always does make me go, man, I wish he was back in the regular book though, man. Come on.
It's funny. Martha is not always a character. Like sometimes we'll focus very, very heavily on his father and, the son's need to live up to the father or some revelation we find about the father makes him question. Martha sometimes is a background character. And I really like these stories where we get a chance to see the son's love for his mother because it happens. And I mean, there's been some terrific stories in the comics where they focused on Bruce's mom, because you want to feel the drive and the motivation of this guy because of the death of both parents. Like, what is it that, he was this child that had them taken from him? It's not a child that, like, had no connection with his parents. There was a deep love that drives him to not want this to happen to anybody else. Well, if you don't like the people, you're not going to be as driven. So it's really important to show us that their relationship was something that was substantial, something that would be burned into his brain, something that he would remember. We get that very easily with Dick Grayson with the Flying Graysons because of the fact that they were this circus act together. And clearly, they trained together, they were actively raising him. So there's not a lot of gray area with Dick Grayson as far as the relationship with the parents. With Bruce, sometimes we get that memory, but we don't get as much focus on both parents. So I liked this focus on Martha, which was a thing. And I think it's critical to the character. And keep in mind, I know there's been a lot of great stories with both parents. I've read a lot of them. It's just I've found over the years that sometimes there's an imbalance on which you focus on. And I like when you get these different stories with the mom. I don't know if you agree with me on that or if that's been your experience. Maybe in your reading, your focus has been different. But on mine, I don't always feel like we get as much of a glimpse into his mom as we do into Thomas Wayne.
I'll be honest with you, I 100% agree with you on that one. And that was, something kind of I liked about it. As I said before, a love between a child and their mother and a husband and wife, it's a dramatically different love, but it is, both are equally intense. Both of them are equally, there is that equal loyalty and that equal love, and there is something about that. So, it's a different type, but it's really on the same level for me, when I look at that. Because, I think about my life, think about your life, and just how much losing that parent, how much losing mom affected me. It's been over 2 years now, and I'm still dealing with it. I'm still having issues, still having problems from that one moment in my life. And I can, again, you kind of understand, the pain Bruce goes through. I will never understand what spawned, what he went through with losing wife, because I don't have one. I can't, that can't enter my brain pan, to be honest with you. I've got close friends, I could, associate maybe, when they pass, how I'll feel, but it's not the same as that husband-wife connection. It's not, but, when you see just, again, that pain and how it fits and how it feels. And, again, stories I've mostly read have been associated with his father, and it has been about the dad. It has been about Bruce trying to live up to his, what would his father think? Well, his mother is just as equally important. And yes, I've read plenty of stories where it's about the mother and this and that, but, they always seem to focus on that, the father-son relationship, when it comes to Bruce. And, going back to the movie where both, Clark and Bruce, both mothers are both Martha. And that was that whole connection. And people were ripping that apart about how the fact that they're both moms were named Martha. And that seemed kind of to calm Bruce down from trying to kill, Clark in Batman versus Superman story. There's a lot of people trash those scenes, but again, I was like, yeah, it's actually, I like that scene. So there is that connection, and I agree with you that they do, they tend to focus more on the father-son relationship, and they do the same thing with Clark as well. Jonathan and Clark's relationship is a lot laid out more than Clark and Martha, even though in some of the movies, almost all the movies, Jonathan dies first, and Martha's around later, and then she goes, and then they always have that connection of him with Martha when she passes. In the TV series they did that, in the different movies they've done that. Well, the one most recent movie, she's still alive, she survived. There is that that connection. I'm glad, like you, I'm glad to see they went that route with the Martha, because again, it makes more sense in the comparison, but also it is a powerful connection for Bruce.
The pearls are interesting because, it's a motivator like the Court of Owls. This was a target. They were targeting the Waynes because of the pearls. And there was something hidden in one of the pearls that opens up this gateway. And it's something that they weren't aware of. And if Martha hadn't been wearing those that night, they could have been ripped off from the house or something. It wasn't about killing the Waynes. It was about gathering the pearls. So it's Batman's being taunted by them. And it's all this ploy in the alley to lead him to fight Spawn. So, because they're trying to use Spawn as a pawn to, no pun intended, to open up, get him to open up the doorway using Batman. And that initial battle where Spawn is just, I like these stories where you sit there, because you see sometimes the Superman stories versus Batman, where remember, Batman's human. He is being schooled by Spawn because Spawn's under the impression that he knows what he's dealing with here and that he's dealing with some form of demon, some form of supernatural creature. Then he realizes partway through he's human and the game all changes. It's a distraction. Not only is it a distraction, but Spawn all of a sudden is depowered. And, his humanity focuses into play. I really liked seeing that. I liked seeing first the intense power and that this is not something Batman's going to be able to overcome. At the very best, Batman could survive. It reminds me of the most recent Batman story we've gotten to see with Failsafe, right? Where we've gotten to see Batman, backed against the wall.
Yeah.
And, he's just trying to survive. I liked seeing that in this. It showed it. Whereas if Batman would have held his own right from the start, there would have been like, really? Spawn's that weak? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and again, artwork on these fight sequences, this is a couple pages worth. The dialogue and the thought balloons and commentary throughout it really do help tell the story. But I can tell you, in my art read through on this one, these pages were an absolute joy. Because, one, going non-traditional panels, which is, a must, in a story like this, but also just some of the detail on the fight sequences. You talk initially how Bruce is getting his butt kicked, and then the turnaround when Spawn is depowered. And you just see Bruce open up to the point where, I love he sticks a finger in the eye. In the fight, you got a point where he pokes Spawn right in the eye, just, and then follows up with a right cross. I was like, yeah, street fight. You gotta love it when Bruce takes it that way, and he pushes it to that level. But, it's funny because, Bruce pushes it to a level, fights back. Spawn ends up on top, wins that display, and as Spawn's regrouping, that's when Bruce is recovering. I love how Bruce never, he went to that, that darker side. He went to the street. He, gutted, it was that gut check of the fight where you just got to, dig deep. But he doesn't lose who is Bruce. He doesn't lose who Batman is.
Yeah.
He doesn't lose the intelligence. And I love seeing that in Batman, where it's one of those things that make the true Batman is not about just beating people up. There is that great detective in there. There is that mind that's always working. And Bruce recognizes something is off kilter here. Something's wrong. And I love that it's Bruce who initially finds that connection. And Bruce initially realizes what's going on. And he's able to reach across and pull Spawn back into thinking clearly.
It's desperation, like at first, because Spawn's beating him, and I mean hurting him. I mean, he is hurt. And I like that not just the artwork, but the dialogue is referencing the fact that he is injured. So while he is able to physically now go to toe-to-toe with this human, he's going toe-to-toe with a human that isn't hurt, who has some body armor pieces on, with the spikes and things like that do give him a physical edge in the fight. So when he's punching Bruce, he's hitting him with spikes and things like that. And this is, yes, human toe-to-toe, but this is human toe-to-toe with a Batman who has been beaten down already. So I liked that was a thing. I'm with you. To me, the only reason why this worked was the fact that you get the idea that Batman is somebody who is an experienced combatant, that when Al is thrown for a loop and human again, because he realizes Batman's human, it gives Batman the split second that and a less experienced fighter would not have been able to take advantage of. But the wheels are still turning throughout the fight, and I really, really enjoyed seeing how that all played out. The dialogue between the two of them, where Bruce is sitting here, you come to my side instead, and the two of them having the debate over whether or not they are going to take the step that would make them vulnerable, because they're both aware if Bruce goes over to Al's side, Al's got the advantage. Al comes over to Bruce's side, Bruce has the advantage. While they're at the point where they're willing to dialogue, they don't trust yet. And I liked that because that was intelligent between the two. Rage being a thing, too, as they're talking about the people that they've lost. You know, Bruce is trying to reason with him, but Al's driven by the loss of a great love, and you see that you're dealing with, in their own minds, a very, very emotional topic for both, that they're trying to find common ground. Bruce is like, all right, I got to take the risk here. I like that it was Bruce that took the risk. He's like, all right, I got to prove this. Fine. Kill me if you want. Otherwise, we need to talk. And he takes the step. It was smart that he waited until then, though, because he'd gotten enough information to him that he's like, he understands his adversary at the moment and can trust enough that I think I understand how this person's operating. I can afford to take this jump because it's the only way we're going to move forward and be able to really go after the person who's really driving this. That was something that I thought was really, really well played and well paced out because it made sense. Sometimes that happens and you're like, well, why did he just do that? It made sense. And that's something that using page count judiciously to say how much time are we going to put into this is something that it's a careful storytelling piece. And you mentioned before how good the storytelling was. I couldn't agree with you more. The storytelling on this was really solid when you give me that pace where I'm sitting there, all right, this makes sense. You know, why these two are now all of a sudden okay. And you got to establish that in this in a pretty good time frame. And we've got extra page counts on this, but you want to keep a story moving forward. And I really liked that pacing.
Well, and you figure, one, this is a larger book than normal, so they needed that extra pacing. But, they spent, 2.5 pages in the post-fight of Bruce calming him down. And actually, and again, it's one of those things. Bruce can, read people. He can understand who they are. He's starting to understand when he realized, as soon as Bruce realized, hey, we're both getting played here. We got to handle this a different route. And I love seeing that. And again, like you said, they spent the time to really slow it down. And then I agree with you. It had to be Bruce who took the first step. And normally that's not a traditional Batman thing to do where he would trust the person not to strike. This one, it fit that why Bruce would do that. And I loved seeing him do that. I thought that for me was a great moment. Again, in this story being told. And I love how he just like, when he steps forward, he's like, there, kill me if you want. Otherwise, we need to talk. And right there, that wasn't the Batman voice. That was Bruce Wayne's actual voice, I think. And there's times when you can read it where he's doing the Bat voice. This right here wasn't the Bat voice. And I think that for, all these kind of, I can hear this stuff going on in my head. And it's one of the things that I really enjoyed about how they took their time in the fight. They took their time in the post-fight. They took time building to these moments, and then you flip the page, and now we're getting into the owls and the villains and the reveal of what is actually kind of what is going on. I love how this story, how they laid this out. So you have this massive energy, adrenaline fight, the calm, and then, okay, now let's build for the next storm.
I agree with you totally on the whole thing where it wasn't the Batman voice, because here's why the Batman voice would make sense. He knows that the best way for him and Al to be able to really have a face-to-face and be able to work together is that he's not ramped up in full-on demon. So the idea of showing him that he's human was really smart. It's one of the, I'm not a big fan of Batman dropping the cowl with people. In this story, I would have been okay if he did it there. just further reiterating the fact, like, look, I'm a human.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad he didn't. I'm not saying that that's something that, like, was missing from that part of the story. It was not. But I liked, to your point, that you had this vibe immediately that he didn't go into Batman voice mode.
Yeah, yeah.
The Talon being introduced as the assassin that's going to go after them, I thought was really great. Because, yeah, I want to see a Talon. And you've got to now have a villain, a foil for the two of them that you feel really is going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Spawn and Batman. And obviously a Talon is a perfect adversary for that. So further kind of pushing the Court of Owls agenda as you have the meeting between Al and Batman talking about their worlds and talking about their sidekicks or the people that they work with. Their difference is that they've both surrounded themselves with like people, but Bruce's like people is very different than Al's like people. Yes. As you see the different kinds of spawns, like Gunslinger Spawn. I think that's King Spawn. It's great to see those characters that are in there along with the Bat family. It was a good use of that. Then you do see the dropping of the call, and I like that the dropping of the call waited for the Bat Cave. Because I think it's really important that was not done out in public. I would have been great with it for the purpose of calming the situation down. But they've gotten to a point where now we're starting to gradually develop another layer of trust in a safe zone. But Al's dropping of his mask is not just showing the human side. It's showing exactly what Al's warning him. It's like a tale of caution. I like being human. He's like, so did I, but they'll take that from you. So he's trying to put out there, they're going to wipe you out. These people they don't care about your humanity. It's not sustainable. These creatures are here to destroy you. They're going to turn you into a monster. This is what your future is going to look like. They're talking about their very different worlds, where Al has a world that did have a Superman, but Superman was one of the first they took out. Which I did not see coming. I did not see them really going full multiverse and developing this concept of either Spawn's world being this world or the idea that we're going full on multiverse with both characters. I don't care. I liked the use of that concept in this story. I thought it was really well played.
Yeah, I liked it too. And again, it's funny. One of the things that with these sequences, like you said, dropping the cows, the perfect in the cave, and just that conversation about the nature of them being human, and I like being human. They took that from. It's funny, when I was reading Spawn, he wasn't able to go back into his real face. Mm-hmm. He could only do that. It was that white guy with like curly, I think curly red hair or something like that. Completely dramatically different look than what he actually looks like. And so it was kind of neat that he's able to now do his real face, and even the Spawn face. It looks like to me like he's had his head was either cut in half or something, because he's got those staples that are running through the whole side of it that runs right between the eyes. That's something that wasn't around when I was reading it. So whatever happened to Spawn in the regular book, they pulled it through to here, which I thought was kind of neat. Again, it's and you talk about his team. That's where, because I'd seen the Gunslinger Spawn, and I think I'd seen the images of the one Spawn, but I didn't know who they were, didn't really get invested in it enough to seek out information. But it was neat that they're showing, giving those people who have no idea about Spawn who he is, what he's about, what his team's about. Again, with him, his power really is a curse, and it's cool to see how they're both diving into the limitations that they've put on their life, that they chose to put on their life. Some of it is their choice, some of it's thrust upon. Like, Al's got this monster that he was turned into because of this, and he's using it for good. Bruce had the tragedy of his parents, and then, throughout his life, though, we've seen the personal tragedies that he carries with him because he's the Bat. So it's kind of a neat, again, nice little comparison between these two characters.
I like that the Joker they bring into this is the one from Death of the Family.
Yeah.
because it kind of makes sense with the whole Spawn thing. And man, when he takes off the face,
Yep.
it's the Joker being the Joker, right? He's being faced with a demon, and he's the one person in the Batman universe that is going to be able, without missing a beat, to be able to just kind of charm his way into this world. I really loved the artwork here. I thought it was a great use of the artwork, the great use of some of the clowns from Spawn, because I remember those characters from Spawn. I can't pretend I remember, like, I've got to admit, this is intriguing me to the point where I want to read, some of the early Spawn again. I'm intrigued by, reading a little bit more of the current Spawn. I want to see if the time factor is going to allow me to. They've had on Comixology some of the Spawn omnibuses, like the chronological omnibuses that they've been releasing, and they had specials on them. And I grabbed a couple of them with every intention of reading them. I just haven't gotten around to it, not because I'm not interested. It's time. Time winds up being my biggest enemy when it comes to characters like this. This story is doing what it should, though. It's not going to do the same thing for every reader, but for me, where I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I'm a lapsed Spawn fan where I haven't read in a while. This is getting me reinvigorated into that world. I'm like, oh, because they're playing off each other, and you're doing it through the right lens. Batman's my guy. Yep. I'm riding along. I'm seeing Spawn through Batman's eyes, and I'm like, okay, I kind of want to know more. Which is a point of doing these crossovers. I mean, you want to get intrigued by characters. I grew up reading Brave and the Bold and books like Marvel Team Up, and that was always the point of those stories, was to tell a strong enough story where you know the character enough at the end that you want to see more of them whenever you can. This is succeeding from that end, for me.
Here's the issue with me. I'm not sitting there going, oh, I got to go get more Spawn. I am thinking, man, I'd like to read more of, McFarlane's stuff, just again, because I remember how much I really enjoyed how he crafts the story. Mm-hmm. But the Batman Spawn issue 2, I'm 100% all in on.
Yeah.
By this point in time in the book, I was all 100% in on issue number 2. And, so if and when it happens, because I'm assuming it's going to happen because the way it ends, they lead in for the next issue. I don't know when it's coming out, but if and when it comes out, I'm picking it up immediately. Whereas with this version, I picked this up when we decided, hey, let's why don't you want it? It was like you threw out there, hey, do you want to talk about Batman Spawn? I'm like, yeah, sure. That's when I bought it. I didn't buy it when it initially came out. I bought it, because of, for the, for the podcast. When issue 2 comes out, I'm getting it immediately.
And I did this.
What this did for me.
And I did this on purpose because I knew it was a book we weren't currently reading. Both of us, neither of us were reading Spawn right now. I knew it was a character that we both liked. I knew you had some dealings with the character. I didn't know to what extent. So I figured that'd be interesting. But also, it's fun to approach a story where you're kind of like, all right, where are either of us at on this one? And we're both in different places as far as where we go from here with this, which I think is cool. But I think we're in both agreement. This is a great story. Like, it was a page turner as you were going through. I don't know about you, I was really glad I read this. And I feel like I will say this is an example of one where if we weren't doing the podcast, it might have gone longer for me to have read this because of the amount of stuff that I'm trying to get caught up on right now. But I was looking for topics for the podcast, and I saw that this came out, and I'm like, okay, this would be different and interesting. And that's really what drew me to saying, do you want to do this on the show? Because I figured that would be just kind of a different flavor.
And again, with me, I never would have read this. Seriously, I didn't buy this until we talked about doing it on the show. Mm-hmm. I looked at, again, as I said, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it'd probably be neat, but I didn't go, I gotta get it.
So you didn't have this. You did not have this on your pull list at all.
Not at all.
Okay, I did.
Yeah, see, not at all. And I think it was just one of those things. Like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. That's kind of interesting. But it wasn't something I'm like, I've got to read. or even on, because I was thinking maybe I would get this through, the app or something like that and go eventually read it, or in my head, I was thinking one day you would say, hey, that was a really good series. Oh, okay. I'll jump on the app and I'd get it then. I wasn't thinking I've got to get this, but now I'm all in on issue 2. I'm not going to start looking for, I'm not going to go through my books and find my old original Spawns or find collected or anything like that yet. But, I did put a yet in there. But I am thinking I like to look to see what other stuff McFarlane's written, because, again, I like how he crafts a story. I like how this is laid out, how this, again, it's the story builds on itself. Now, they've got, it's the double size, almost triple size of a normal book. So he's got plenty of pages to do it in, but even, like if you could give me 100 pages and I still wouldn't craft a story like this, so there is the talent behind taking it and using the page count correctly and, knowing how many pages to spend here, how many there, where to jump the action around, because one of the things that was kind of neat, you go from that cool heart-to-heart conversation between Bruce and Al in the cave. You go into the Talon setting up basically, and then Bruce and Al setting up the trap and this and that. It's, a really cool, again, page turner is a comment, but also just, as you're reading more and more, it's pulling you into the story even farther. And we're already heavy into the story, but we're heavy into the Batman verse stuff.
One of the things I really liked about the Talon as an enemy was there was an intelligence to the Talon. Like, I like that that this is this, we know from the history of Court of Owls and things like that these are creatures that can take just an immense amount of damage, and they're skilled fighters and things like that. So we got that component to them. But I also like that there is a strategy to the Talon, and the Talon finding the pearl. We knowing that pearl, that single pearl, is an important key to a doorway, to opening things up. Again, trying to manipulate Batman and Spawn. And the key there is trying, because what I loved about this story is neither Spawn or Batman are mindless. And the two of them are working together, and there's a planning between the two of them. And I like that they swerved me with that planning. I didn't see where this story was going to go. Other than I thought it was going to be a cool team up. I wanted to see where it was going. I liked that it didn't just show the intelligence of Batman, that we got to see the surprise of the intelligence and manipulations that Spawn's capable of when it comes to the villains in the story. And I thought that was something that was really well done. They work well together. Yes,
and it was kind of a neat team up, with these two, because again, we've talked about how similar they are. There are differences to their style. There is Spawn does not have the code of the bat, but I liked how each one's willing to accept. They're each willing to accept, orders from others, but they're both the alpha in this.
Yeah.
They're both the team lead. They're both the strategist. They both have, what they're doing, but they can recognize when somebody else has a good plan. Part of this is Batman, part of this is Spawn. They're working together. It's, I like seeing how everything laid out, how the trap was set for the Talon. And even using a dead zone, because that would weaken Spawn. But it's necessary for the final pieces of the trap. I thought that for me was a really cool usage of it, because the Talon's like, what? You picked a dead zone. Perfect. It'll be easier for me. Yes, but there's a reason he chose Arkham. There's a reason he chose that place. And I loved that notion. I love that.
I like that there was the manipulation of, we made you, Batman. We, in that moment, we crafted you. We created you. And I really like the idea of this. They're trying to tease them into, we can get you to your wife. We can get you to your mother. These are things that we can do with this. We have that power to be able to do that. And it really is, they're playing on the heartstrings, trying to keep them off balance. And these two aren't having it, which is interesting. Because you saw very much, in the beginning of the story, there was a definite emotional pull for both of them. Obviously with Al more than Batman as far as being a way to lose control. But I like that the two of them aren't being played by this. And that was really a great growth in the story when you got to see that component.
Oh, God, yeah. And again, I like how interesting how, in the end here, Al trusts Bruce's plan completely. He's the one who's really at risk. There's a good chance he's the one who could die in this moment or die. I honestly don't know how easily he could die in this circumstance, even though he's in the dead zone. He obviously still has some powers and he would be fine. But would he? I liked, again, the usage of that, but also the moment that where Spawn adopts the Batman appearance to add fear to the inmates of Arkham. That for me was a kind of a neat moment because, again, it does show the dramatic difference between Bruce and Al. Stuff that Bruce is willing to do, stuff that Bruce needs to do versus what, Al thinks this will help you. Because that kind of stuff, Bruce never wants to have anyone thinking he will cross the line. Right. That's not the fear.
Right. Well, and he also, he believes that much in his path that the cop-out of, it's not that I'm afraid to kill, it's that I do not believe in the killing. I believe there's always another way. So he really is furious over what Al's done. I get that Al's thinking like, hey, I got the dirt on my nails, because you don't have to now. Right. And this is going to help you because they're all watching. And I like how during the battle between him and the Talon, they made it a point to show us as the viewer that all of the inmates were watching. All of Batman's foes were watching this. So what Al's trying to do here in his mind, it has the potential to work to Batman's advantage. So he's right in what he's thinking. This could, in some ways, help Bruce a great deal. But it's not what Batman wants. And I like that the piece is on the table. It was an interesting sort of play.
Well, and it's interesting because I have periodically in my life thought, what if Bruce did kill? What if the Bat didn't go like people like the Joker? The people who are the extreme villains. It's always been a comment in my mind. What if he killed the Joker the very first time he met him? Think of all the lives he would have saved. But, it's that fine line of, and it's been the commentary on the code of the Bat is once you cross that line, it's easier every single time to cross it.
Sure.
And eventually you'll be killing people for jaywalking, and it'll get to that extreme. And that's where Bruce will never go. That's why Bruce doesn't cross it the first time. Because he doesn't want anything beyond that. Plus, it is, in a way, there is a fear of death is one thing, but a fear of what he's going to do to you. Sometimes surviving is worse than actually being killed. The amount of pain you can put somebody in, and not kill them is a little bit on the extreme side. Bruce knows those ways. Bruce knows that. The Bat knows how to hurt you. And that's something the villains fear. The fact that, he's not going to kill me, but I'm going to wish he had.
You realize now with unlimited multiverses, there is a world out there now where Batman only kills for jaywalking. You can commit any other crime and you're going to live, but jaywalking's it. That's the line.
One of my favorite Next Generation stories was where they visited a society where the punishment for any crime is death. Mm-hmm. And walking on the grass almost got Wesley Crusher killed because there was a sign that clearly says "Do not walk on the grass," and he stepped on the grass. And that was the whole thing on this whole episode of they're visiting this planet. He steps on the grass and they're going to kill him. And I thought that for me, that's one of my favorite episodes just because of the nature of, extreme law, and it's one of those things they're tying that into the comic books, tying that into the Bat, tying that into Spawn. It's kind of a neat ideology of, is that extreme law the right way to go or not? And I like how, with this sequence, especially this ending sequence where, Bruce is sitting there, Talon's got the knife to Spawn's throat. He's like, I'm going to slit his throat. He goes, go for it. Do it. You do that, I release all the villains. And at first I'm reading this going, so that's not going to be a bad thing. That's going to make things worse on Bruce. But I love how then Bruce immediately continues on. They may hate me, but they're going to hate you even worse because you created me. You're the reason for me. If it wasn't for you, and that's how, now there would be no Batman. That's how all these people will see it now. And I love just that idea about how that's a great bluff, which I'm assuming wasn't a bluff. I don't know for 100% certainty, but it is a neat usage of, again, the usage of fear.
So am I reading the ending right, where we've got Wanda alive in Batman's universe and Martha alive in Spawn's universe?
That's how I read it. And it doesn't look like either one of them knows why they're there or what's going on.
Yeah.
Because Wanda stares at the signals. She doesn't know what it means. And then they show Martha in that church.
This is a cool story. I really like this. I didn't know if it was, and I'm kind of glad it didn't. I've got to go reread the other two crossovers because I'm intrigued by Did you read the original two crossovers?
No.
Did you get that?
No, actually, I didn't. I don't think I got those.
So it's available as a collected edition. They've released actually a couple collected editions. It's a collection of Batman and Spawn, and it's there's the two stories. One is Image and one is DC's. The DC version, the writers actually between both versions, Doug Munch, Chuck Dixon, and Alan Grant and Frank Miller were the writing teams. Between the two different versions, and you had Klaus Janson and Todd McFarlane on art. Just to give you an idea, that Frank Miller writing, Todd McFarlane drawing, and that's not taking anything away from the DC team. But at the time when that came out, that was a big deal. I mean, Frank Miller writing Spawn and Batman together, with Todd McFarlane art was just kind of like mind blowing. And the DC story was phenomenal. I'm not taking anything away from the creative team of Doug Munch, Chuck Dixon, and Alan Grant. I mean, they were. With Klaus Janson on art, that's certainly nothing to shake a stick at either. But really cool stuff. So if you liked this, they're well worth seeking out. And they're collected now, so it's easy to grab them. But I really enjoyed this. It was, like you, it came around at a time where I just was reading a ton of stuff. And that's why I grabbed it. I thought, just for something different on the podcast, why don't we take a look at this and just talk about these characters? I'm glad. Are you glad we talked about this one?
Oh, 100% glad. Because, again, as I said, I probably would not have read this if we didn't do this for the show. And I'm really glad we did because wonderful story told. This was a great story. And, when they do issue 2, because the ending, it's laid out nicely for the next issue, I'm 100% picking it up immediately.
So knowing you can get the collection of the original 2 issues that were out there, did you like this enough that you would read those?
Yes, actually. Yeah, I wrote it down that I'm going to look for it on Comixology.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious to see, where you're at in that, because there's no wrong answer on it. I was just curious because we're clear. Like, I'm at the point where I'm saying I want to read more Spawn. You're like, I would read more Batman Spawn. So we're kind of in different places there, but it's interesting. I mean, I thought this was fun just to talk about this one. Speaking of something that's a little bit different, why don't we talk about Batman Joker Deadly Duo?
Now I can get out of here.
Our next discussion is on Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo, issue number 4. The story and art is by Mark Silvestri, colors by Arif Prianto, letters by Troy Pacheri, and a special thanks to Matt Hawkins and Bridget Silvestri.
Now, I don't know what your exposure's been to Mark Silvestri. I was jonesing for this because I've had many stretches where I've been a big Top Cow fan. And very similar to our discussion we just had where, budget kind of drove some of my decisions with Spawn. Top Cow's been the same thing where I've read for many months at a time Top Cow books and really gotten into some of the stuff they've been doing because they're different. Witchblade in the Darkness in particular are 2 of the books that I really enjoyed. But they did, for a while there, some great Tomb Raider comics. They did some crossovers. There was a lot of really cool things going on with those books. So I was a big fan of Mark Silvestri back from the days of his work on the X-Books. And another one of the ones that went over to Image, and really enjoyed following the writer. I'm the writer and artist, I should say, and the artwork in particular is what was the draw. So then the idea of, like, he was doing this Batman story, and it was going to be Black Label and multi-book, just really drew me in. This story is phenomenal. The artwork is phenomenal. Totally love that it's Black Label because he can really have some fun, but I like that it's grounded Black Label. I like when they do these Black Label stories that feel like they could be in continuity, but we can skirt the lines a bit and not have to, worry about 100% what's going on. And I'm saying that as I'm looking at in issue 3, the opening sequence where we've got, we were left with that cliffhanger of, okay, this thing is reproducing, like it's like expanding and growing. It was teeth, like a tooth at first, right? Yep. And this thing's like growing into a full-blown creature. We know that. What's going to happen to Alfred and Dick Grayson? I think that's where it being Black Label does leave you up in the air. Are they expendable in this? And I actually really liked that sense of drama in it.
Well, hey, they're sending home pieces of Gordon to them.
Yes.
So everybody, again, that's one of the things I really liked about this being Black Label. Everyone is expendable.
Sure.
They can kill off somebody. And it's I hate to say that because these are good. I like these characters, but you can get away with this story. And it's one of the things that I absolutely really enjoy about this Black Label stuff. Because you and I are both huge fans of Elseworlds. We're huge fans when they can tweak stuff. I don't want to say there's no risk to this, because I don't want to say there's no risk, because there is a risk in the story if you kill off too many people that you ruin the story. Mm-hmm. So you got to have that blend of a body count, making it make sense towards the story and what you do. But in the overall ongoing stories, as a general rule, Jim Gordon is safe. We always thought Alfred was safe as well. So in the regular story, they got rid of Alfred. So in a general rule, in a normal story, in a way, you feel there's certain characters that are safe. In this Black Label, in this universe, no one is safe. And I think that is one of the things that makes me so enjoying this, about the fact that anything can happen. And add into it, you're talking about art and story. I always say when you get a creative team that can really jive well, when it's the same person, you really get that jiving well. My experience with him, I know I've read some of his stuff, but it was during the periods where I didn't really pay attention to the creative team. So when you say how he was in on the X's, how he did some Top Cow stuff, I probably read his stuff and didn't realize it was him.
I know you did, because of the era that you were reading the X books, you've definitely seen the artwork. And may have, at the point in time, because of the fact that your friend was dabbling around in other comics, you've probably seen some of his other work.
Oh, definitely. And it's one of the things that, the thing I do now, because again, when I was younger, I didn't pay attention at all to creative team. I just read the book. When things look differently, it looked differently. Oh, okay. It was just one of those things I never thought to say, hey, which artist is this? It wasn't until really doing the show that I really started focusing on the art team and following creative and stuff like that. But one of the things I do now, though, is I look people up, and I look them up and say, okay, what has he done? Is there anything that I've read in the past that was this guy? And I use that kind of as a way to either go back and read old books or just get a better feel, a better groove for him. When we're done recording, I'm going to look him up. I'm going to look him up on the different things, see what different books, when he was working on the series, what did he do. I'll look through my collection, see if I got anything from him, and I'll read it. And that's a thing kind of like I go through with this, because this is one of those stories that I was like, oh, okay, let's see what this is. Should be kind of interesting. Issue 1, I was 100% all in. I'm like, oh, we are definitely, a lot of times I've been thinking I'll buy one issue, and if I really like it, I'll wait until it comes out on the app, and I'll just read it on the app. Well, with this book, I'm buying it every single time, and I still have it on the app as well, just because I'm enjoying the story so much. I'm enjoying what I'm reading so much. I'm not going to wait a month for it to be on the app, or 2 months, or however long it takes to be on the app. I'm reading it now. Yeah,
that's something that I really love about comics in general. It's when you read something and you're enjoying it, it draws you. It really does drive for me what I read next.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect of it. I think that part is really fun when things get bumped up your reading list. This was like every page was not only just a visual treat, but a storytelling treat. I liked his take on the Batmobile. I liked his take on the Batman outfit. I liked the fact that Batman's trying to, like, he's teamed up with the Joker, and he's trying to take the Joker's place. And we've got a family that is going to die. We've got a kid, and we've got two parents that are going to die. If he doesn't make the right choice as far as who is supposed to die, they're all going to die. He's playing the game for the Joker, and I love that the villain's manipulating him. Because the villain's kind of like, well, that offer was for the Joker. That offer wasn't for you. So he made him go through the hoops anyway, and then he's like, I'm going to kill him anyway. But I like that Batman, the correct answer was, because both parents were horrible, both of them should die. And both parents are like, what? Are you out of your mind? And he's like, the Greys are a lost cause. They only care for themselves. Thomas is nothing more than a commodity. The boy's only chance at a happy life is with his aunt. I'm just like, the detective really looked at all of the evidence and made an honest determination there, which I was sitting here like, that is so awesome.
And that's one of the things I liked about that part of the story from issue 3, that it's giving you that choice, the choice that Batman never would make. They continue on in issue 4, where, again, giving Batman the choice that he would never make, but the Joker would make, And I thought that, for me, was one of the neat things about this, how this isn't just an unusual team-up. They each have a part to play in the role, in this story, in this game. And it's kind of it's a neat idea on the team up and the duality of the team and the deadly duo. Instead of the dynamic duo, the deadly duo. I thought that, for me, was a really cool usage of it. This could have been very easily just a cheap story where it's Batman and Joker together, see the antics that ensue. No, this is, again, going deeper into who Bruce is, who the Joker is, dealing into their base psyche and their base construction of their character, plus also introducing us to this new villain, who I'm assuming is going to be around after this, even though this isn't reality, but it is. So it's another one of those neat stories where they're not saying it's 100% current continuity, but it could very easily play a part in continuity.
So one of the things, and actually I'm going to jump around a little bit here, because you're interestingly talking about the fact that the Joker can make decisions that Batman can't. So it's hard to argue with the fact that if Joker hadn't been on that train, Batman might have failed in saving the people there, because he was doing everything he could. Maybe. I mean, it would be great to see, like, what Batman would have had everyone do and rally together to maybe just make it under the gun, because he's Batman, right? So we never got to see that because the Joker had already been throwing people off the train, just the big ones.
Just the heavy ones. Like, all right.
With that big grin on his face. I mean, and it was the Joker. It was interesting, because is there an Elseworlds version of it? Is there an alternate path where either Batman would have failed or would have succeeded in doing it an alternate way? We're never going to know that. And I love that about the story, where it's like, yeah, it worked. What the Joker was doing worked. Sim's story and the Sims family story is really interesting in this, and the way that it plays out chronologically. Well, I'm in a unique chronological storytelling fashion, because we don't really find out we know what happens to his daughter from what's alluded to in the earlier issues, but we don't really find out till issue 4, like, in real time, what happened to him, what happened to his daughter, what happened to his intended son-in-law, yeah. and how it was the whole event with the Joker that went into play. It also sets up, though, Sim's motivations. Why is he after the Joker? Why is he after the Batman? Why is he after the police? He blames all of them for the way that they handled the situation, and I don't know that he's wrong. I mean, he's right to blame the Joker. He's right. It was really a comedy of errors in what happened, And it cost the life of his daughter. It cost him his eye. Now, that doesn't mean I'm justifying what he's doing, but I understand the anger towards them, right?
Right.
And, to certain degrees, all of it's justified. It was really a great event when you see it kind of play out and what happened there. And why he's pulled Harley Quinn. And I love the sequence where the truck comes smashing through. And the Joker's like, what the hell kind of driving do you call that? And she's like, what do you mean? You told me to drive into the church, so I did.
He's like, okay, fair point.
Their relationship was really, really great, during that time. And clearly this is something that happened a significant time ago, because look at the age of Jim Gordon. So I'm assuming that Sim's plan's been in play now for multiple years since that event, right?
Oh yeah, this was the initial beginning of. This is the birth of this villain. And I like how they waited until issue 4 to really break down what happened.
Yeah,
break down why he's doing this. And again, understanding why somebody does it doesn't justify it, but it does. It makes you, it kind of helps. It makes the villain more creditable, makes the villain more readable, makes the story more enjoyable. You don't agree with what they're doing or what they're saying, but you understand the motivation.
Yes.
Someone whose pure motivation is just, conquer the world and be rich and powerful, not so deep. Oh, okay. But this guy, you see why he's going after the guy, why he's going after PD, why he's going after Gordon, why he's going after the Joker, why he's going after the Bat, why he's dealing with all of this, where this anger comes from. It's kind of like the understanding of Bruce, where all of his determination comes from witnessing his parents dying. It's born out of that pain. This guy was born out of that same kind of pain. And it wasn't even just the simple stuff of him getting his eye shot out or his son-in-law dying. It was just everything that compiled and built on that. I absolutely, this right here was a really neat little story blip, because it does further the story, and this was the right time for this. So if they would open with this, it would have been still cool. This is a cool sequence. This is a good story. But I think, waiting this long to actually give it to us really had me going, okay, what happened? Why is this guy doing this? Is this the normal just, the Joker ruined my life kind of thing? Or is there something beyond it? No, it's something beyond that. And they're showing us that. And I again, absolutely love this, and those little funny moments in there that whenever they have it throughout this series has been wonderful, in that it doesn't take away from the seriousness or the story. It's a little add-on thing, like when he pulls in a lot when they first crash into the church. Now don't any of you numbskulls do anything stupid. Why, you lunatic son of a bam, like that guy. See, little moment like a horrific thing of him shooting the guy in the head had me chuckling, because again, that's a nice little subtle usage of the humor for the Joker.
Yeah, I totally agree. Visually, from the art side, I'm looking at the top of the bullet train when you see the two of them standing there together, after they've... I thought that was a cool sequence, how they got on the train from the plane, because the plane looked kick butt, too. I love Silvestri's, playing around with the vehicles. I love his Batman outfit. I like his take on the Joker a great deal, too. It's a really good-looking book, and I like the fact that he embraces that this is Black Label, but I'm trying to keep it grounded. So we've got a different flavor of the Batman outfit, but it's grounded enough that it never at any point in time, and I think that's where the sense of danger comes from, it feels grounded. It feels like this is happening in a version of continuity that makes me feel that sense of danger more, and I really love that choice. In the train, one of the things that really stood out for me was the reactions of all the people to the Joker and to Batman, because Batman shows up and he's not with Robin, he's with the Joker. And they're at a wedding. This is a party that they've paid for. At this point in time, you're invading their space, because you figure, it'd be like somebody bursting into a church or a hall after, a wedding. You've paid for this space, you've organized this space, you organized this event, and now these two are telling you to throw everything off the train and totally disrupt your event.
Yes. And again, I liked how initially Bruce's plan with where he's like, get any dead weight, any excess weight. First thought that pops in my head is any food and the liquid, because trains like this would have on supply water supply. That there would cut down some serious amount of weight, and just all these different things going through my head. What would I do? What would I throw off other than people? Again, if this was a regular passenger train, I would say luggage would go. But because of this event, there won't be really a lot of luggage. There wouldn't be a lot of excess stuff. This isn't an active train. It's used more for touristy stuff and special events and things like that. And again, that's information they gave us earlier on when Bruce was talking about the train, talking about the importance of the train. And little details like that I liked seeing in this, so I'd understand, okay, they don't have this kind of stuff. It's not a coal burner, so they don't have the coal to throw over. They don't have the fuel to dump. They don't have any of that kind of stuff that they can actually get rid of, to actually lighten the load. So they got to figure out, and they've got to improvise. And again, I love seeing Bruce improvise where he's like, okay, blow it up. So he's burning everything down to try to break down and get less, that's a way to break down the train, setting it on fire and burning it. Absolutely brilliant. I love that.
I love the infiltration of Simtek. By Nightwing and Catwoman. And I like the interplay between the two of them. I've always liked the two of them when they're paired up because there's a different relationship there. Dick Grayson obviously doesn't have the same feelings for Catwoman that Bruce does, but he kind of gets it.
Yeah.
And there's the interplay between the two is always very, very interesting. It's something I just really enjoyed, but it made sense. If you're infiltrating that place, you would want Catwoman there because she's able to sneak into places that even Batman and Nightwing wouldn't be able to with their gadgets, just because she's got that amazing skill set for that. And I really, really liked the choice that we need all hands on deck and we've got to pull every one of our resources, which was something that was important to me.
I do wonder what kind of favors this Catwoman will call in. Because she even said, he's going to owe me some favors. The boss is going to owe me some favors for this one. And it wasn't just a favor. He's going to owe favors, plural, on that. So kind of neat. Again, this dynamic of what is this relationship between the cat and the bat, how different it is from the normal universe and whatnot. Those are the kind of notions that enter my brain when you see sequences like this.
I like that we did find out from Simtek that they've been working on this regenerative technology, this dead tissue regenerating it, which, immediately my head went right to where this story's going.
Yeah.
That he's trying to resurrect his daughter, and I get that. But it also explained in the previous issue the fact that his eye was starting to, be reconstructed of some sense. But, I mean, even that looked like it's not going well. So I'm going to be very curious to see what this technology actually does. And I like that none of the people that were victims in this, or, as far as the experimentation, were people that volunteered for it. I can't help but wonder in this world if, he's sending parts of Jim Gordon, if he won't use this tech on Jim Gordon.
That was my first thought. Yeah, I was thinking that's how they're going to have Gordon whole again.
Yeah.
And again, maybe we'll have a Gordon who only has one eye. Maybe there's going to be, this Gordon will be disfigured and deformed. But, again, it's always his motivation is to bring back his daughter.
Yeah.
We understand that completely. Father loses his kid, would do anything. And it's that twisting of it. The old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. He was so driven by what he was doing that he was going to take it, forget any of the costs, forget any of the moral repercussion. The ends justify the means in his mind. And I love when you get a villain like that, where you understand where they're coming from. Bringing back a deceased loved one, motivation for every single person in the universe. Would you be willing to cross that line? That's the question of character. That's the question of who are you, who you really are. Do you cut the corners? Because I love how they're talking about just, with getting how, Grayson's, Dick's like, hey, how could anybody agree to be a part of this? Yeah, they didn't agree. They were desperate. They were dying. They just bought the BS that he was selling. Sims had no idea of helping these people. They were the lab rats. They were the guinea pigs that he was experimenting on till he could get the formula right. So again, no regards towards the people who he killed and disfigured and mutated and whatnot. He was only focused on his end goal of getting the perfect formula that would bring back his daughter. Love just how that played out. And again, I love how this information is slowly coming to us. It's coming to us in bits of stories in where you have these horrific moments and you have these realizations that, okay, go on to the next horrific moment. Great layout on this story being told.
I really love in these Black Label books, it does something that I feel like they feel like something that is a little bit more special. I don't mean that as a knock on regular monthly comics. It just feels like it's more of a premium product with these extra pages in the back, the inked pages. And they do these extras, not in every Black Label book, but when they do, I really appreciate that because it's something that it just adds another flavor. I don't have an artistic talent, a bone in my body. And a lot of that is just over the years. I like to draw. I like to doodle. I've never spent enough time at it that I've ever gotten good at it. I enjoy it, though, and, appreciate that aspect of it. Whereas throughout comics, there are people with all kinds of different art philosophies, art storytelling philosophies that are doing great things like this. I enjoy seeing the various stages that artwork goes through. Being able to see these ink pages, for me, is a pure treat because I like seeing the process that leads to the pages that just wowed me. And this book wowed me. I mean, this is really a good-looking series. It's why I wanted to do this one on the show, because I was a big fan of not just the art, but the storytelling. I thought it was a really well-told story on this one. And it's kind of fitting that it lined up with doing Batman Spawn, right? Because these are offshoots of, being Elseworlds type stories in there. And I felt this was a good one. Did you enjoy, what was your take on this? What is your take on this story overall?
The story overall, can't wait for the next issue. Again, I'm really enjoying the story. To the point where, as I said, when this was first announced, my idea in my head was I'd buy issue 1, because I figured we would talk about issue 1, and I'd wait until the next issues came out, and I would just get it on the app and not actually pay money, and I would have my subscription that I have. I'm like, hey, just do it that way. And that was the big plan in my head. After reading that first issue, I've been buying every issue ever since. I'm not waiting for it to come out on the app. I'm actually I've got to keep reading the story. And again, it's combination of, just the 100%. It's the story, but also the story in itself and the artwork that you mentioned before is absolutely wonderful. It's a great combo. Absolutely love this. And you talked about those ink pages at the back of the book. One of the things I kept doing was I have the ink pages on one screen, and then on the other screen I've got the finished colored. And I love looking at the two and just seeing how much different than when you add in the colors, when you add in a little bit more of the shading and this and that versus the pure penciled ink pages. It's kind of a neat look of the two, and it was something I really enjoyed on my art read through because some of the pages I absolutely loved. I thought in a way I thought looked better as the inked, and others I like the colored on this one because really does help set the tone and just bring out, it helps things pop a little bit more. Like that opening sequence in the wedding when he's walking his daughter down the aisle. I actually like that one in the penciled and ink version over the colored, the one where the colors are. But you flip the page, But you flip the page, I like that one better in the colored version than in the black and white version. And again, it's just the action, the stuff going on in the one page really goes, the coloring really does add a pop to it. Now, I'm not saying the colored on that opening wedding sequence looks bad. It doesn't. It looks wonderful, but there's just something about that, the penciled ink, black and white version. Looking at that, I was like, that really looks really cool. I really like that. You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, I would like to have that image up on the wall over the other image. But as I said, you flip the page when you got Bat coming in, confronting the Joker. You got Sims there already with his eye, blown out, and the Gotham PD is swinging in through the thing. All of that in colored, I actually like that over this black and white look to it. And same thing like the Harley sequence, I would say I like the colored over the black and white sequence of it.
See, I like when they do, and they do like director's cut issues or things like that where they'll do the entire issue like in black and white. But I don't want it in place of the color version. Right. I like both. I think there's something to seeing both. And a lot of it's for the reasons that you're stating, where some things just look really better with the color pop and other pages. It's great to see the inked work and see some of what the artist's intention was without the color in there. It's an interesting sort of process as you go through it as a fan. I've got to say, this is a series that I want to own in a collected edition paper. Well, it's funny how there's certain things that I want, like I'm really enjoying. I'm like you buying it to actually it's continuing my love-hate relationship with Amazology. And I'm still calling it Amazology because I'm hoping they get it to the point where it feels like Comixology again to me. Because I feel like it's gotten better since our initial changeover to this new version of it, but it's not quite where I want it to be yet. And I hope they continue to improve it, because I really got to the point where I was really enjoying using Comixology. And for just this reason, this type of story where I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want this the second that it comes out. I've been buying it that way too, with my intention for this type of story. I like to buy this when the whole mini's done as a collected version, to have as a paper version, because the art in particular, this is a story where the colors, there's something about this type of color work that on paper just looks, it has a different pop. It just has a different pop. And this is an example of one I'm going to own in a physical format as well. I don't right now. I own it digitally. And like you, I started reading it on the DC app, and I love the DC app, but I just couldn't wait. And I'm like, get me more.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm thinking absolute on this one.
If they release it as an absolute, but I will say this is where they're going to probably hook me more than once. Because I like this story enough that I will buy a deluxe edition hardcover because sometimes those absolutes take a while before they get announced, and I mean quite a while before they get announced. This is one, and there's not a guarantee that this will be an absolute ever. I do want this physical enough that a deluxe edition hardcover, those ones that are a little more oversized, they're not the traditional hardcover size. I'm assuming this is going to get released as a deluxe edition. I just got that Catwoman Lonely City a little while ago, and that was an example of one that really is like sharp in that deluxe edition. It's a little more oversized. I like that format, like of the deluxe edition. It's also, I'm a sucker for these because they're doing what I want them to do. I want it bigger. So they're releasing it bigger. And then they can go back later and go, Sean, did you like it bigger? Well, what if we give it to you even bigger? And then they release it as an absolute. So they've got me. They've got me trained to buy multiple versions. I admit I will, because the artwork is the draw for me, especially with stories like this, because this is a great story. So this is a story I want to read again, just because the way they're handling the relationship between the Joker and Batman really having no choice. Because when he made the choice to try to work without the Joker, it didn't go so well. Working with the Joker doesn't go so well.
Right.
And I really like that he is truly this agent of chaos. So Batman's in a very tough place. And I like that part of the story.
One of the things I absolutely loved is the look on the Joker's face when he's like, only the big ones, just that grin. Again, it's comedic moments that don't take away from, it doesn't take away from the moment and the seriousness and the horrific nature of it.
Right.
And in a way, in the Joker's mind, he's like, I did right. I did the good thing here. Yeah. I did what needed to be done.
Yeah.
If I hadn't done this, instead of killing 6 or 7 people, thousands would have died, and everybody else on this train would have died.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's one of those combination of the artwork and the story being told. It's one of those things that really you need to have that connection. You need to have that groove. And 100% love this.
Yeah, this is everything that I wanted from this story, and more and more, because I didn't know. You don't always know what to expect, and I especially love the fact that they're crafting a villain that I believe in, and I believe is a threat.
Yes,
and it's hard to craft a new villain. I'm hoping that this goes the route of White Knight, where if this is really successful, that they'll do a sequel in this world. Like, I like this world that's being crafted here, and I think there's room for this to have multiple stories. So I hope this leads to being something where we get a mini here, a mini there with this, if I'm making sense.
Yes. No, I agree completely with you. I'm all down on that one as well.
Yeah, because this was good.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile.
How you doing, Sean and Jim? Just calling today to see how you guys was doing and talk about the new movie format for the DC Universe. I'm very happy about what they announced. The only thing I'm leery on is a 10-year plan. I wish they would have went with a 5-year plan, because we don't know the state of the movie is going to be in 10 years. It seems like if you don't do $1 billion with a comic book movie, the movie seems to be a failure, which I'm finding just unbelievable. That's going to have to, narrative's going to have to change if these movies are going to move forward, because every time something makes under $1 billion, if it makes $750 million, people think, like, okay, well, it didn't do well. It depends on the budget of the movies, people. Marvel movies made a lot of $1 billion, but a lot of those budgets was over $450 million, and it was high. The Black Adam movie was $175 million. And it made almost $400 million, so that's not bad. It's not a bad haul. But they got to get out of this $1 billion successful phase for these movies to go forward. I am so happy with the Booster Gold announcement, because this is what I'm waiting on. We need different types of characters, like the Blue Beetle, which is coming out this year, which I am really happy for. The Supergirl announcement was really good. And they're using the Tom King story, which is going to be kind of oddball, but it's going to be something different that we can get in on. The Authority is going to be mind-blowing if this can come off the ground. This is the one I'm looking forward to see how they play the Midnighter and Apollo relationship on the big screen, because it's never been seen before. This is what we need to change the dynamics of the comic book watching audience. These are the movies that is going to help move this forward if this can get done. And the announcement of Paradise Lost is something that is needed, because we need a pre-Wonder Woman Themyscira story. And like Jim said, we need it in parts. We don't need this to be a movie. 2 hours or hour and a half is not going to do it. We need this in hour segments, 90-minute segments, so you can get a whole flushed out map of this culture, which would be amazing. I'm hoping that they include Nubia in this TV show, because they've been pushing those comic books, so they might as well go add her into the lore so we can have already ready for the big screen. The next thing I'm happy about is that all of the actors are going to be signed to long-term deals, and they'll be able to transgress cartoons, TV, and movies. This has never been hardly done before. Even Marvel hasn't done this. So I'm hoping DC can really pull this off. And let's talk about the lanterns. Now, when you think about it, it says lanterns. It don't say green lanterns. So I wonder if that meaning that we may see different colors with this TV show. I'm not one to speculate. I usually don't watch trailers or nothing. I'm kind of a guy that likes to just fall in when I go see the things. But lanterns could mean anything. It may be a blue lantern. Somebody may have a yellow lantern. I'm hoping it's the green lanterns, but if it's a different color lantern, I'm not going to be upset about it, because I really love the emotional spectrum, and we need to see this, so I'm hoping it happens. And now let's get on to the comic books. DC right now is blowing it off the park with all the new announcements with Reign Arrow, the new Green Lantern book's coming back, the Shazam book written by Mark Waid, and with the Green Lantern stuff, going back to the Green Lantern stuff, let's hope they bring all the Earth Lanterns in initially, because everybody have fans for all the lanterns. People like Kyle, some people like Guy, some people like Jessica, some people like Simon Bass. Oh, they need to just start off with the big two first. So some people can say Guy's a big two, but Kyle over John Stewart. But John Stewart been on a cartoon for years, so I guess it's best to just go with those two for now. Shazam is going to be a really good. It's done by Mark Waid. Mark Waid right now is killing. World Finest is the best DC book right now being published in a lot of people's opinions. Everyone is seeming to love that book. And I believe John Kent book will be get ongoing again, because he needs to be moving beyond the limited series. And then people think you're less than when you appear in a backup feature. It's not the truth, but that's how people feel if you're in a backup book, that you don't deserve your own book. And we know we're going to be getting the Justice League book again. It's just that I was hoping they let the Titans run for a while, but it's already been announced that the Justice League will be coming back immediately. So I was just hoping the Titans got a little run, because they haven't been able to sustain a book for a long time, because no one is really committed to the book since Jeff Johns. That was the last great run they had. The last one was pretty good. I think it went about almost 50 issues, but we never got anything after that but miniseries. And it's just, they need to get the Titans back on an A-level status. And the JSA book has been very good, too. We had some stuff happen with something DC had no problem to control that's causing the book to get delayed. It's not because of Jeff Johns or the art team. It's some stuff internally that DC or the writing team and the art team have no control over. So the book has been delayed, but we do have 2 issues out. It's been pretty good. I'm just hoping they can just get a ongoing book, because they really need this. And this week, gentlemen, we get the Legion cartoon. I will be leaving out my house tomorrow and going to buy me an HD Blu-ray copy of it, because Legion is Legion and JSA is 1A and 1B. It just depends on what day you ask me. That's my 2 favorite teams. If I had to be suspended on an island with 2 team books to have, those 2 would be the one over any other team. So looking forward to those books to come out, and looking forward to the movie, because the movie I hear is going to be pretty good. One thing I do like about James Gunn, he is shot knocking down all rumors that comes out. If somebody says something illogical on the post, he comes out and confronts it right then. He doesn't sit in the wings and sit there and wait and let people make assessments of what he's doing, because he's the one that's doing it. So I really enjoy that. And speaking of the CW, it's going to be a shame when we lost the great Stargirl TV show, which I'm devastated. That show could have went for 10 years. It was just so much history that could have been done. I'm hoping that DC and Warner Brothers will start putting other shows back on Netflix and Amazon. I heard they got some stuff coming to Amazon. They don't need everything on HBO Max, because one format, people just might not get your format. So it would be best to put those on other formats. You're not losing any money, because they got to buy that stuff anyway. You just need this stuff to be seen. So I'm hoping DC does that and let some stuff be shown, because it's a shame that Stargirl is gone, because CW want to go another route. That show was just too good to not be on television. You know, we need to have that back. Please bring that back. That's the most devastating cancellation I've had in years. And so was Pennyworth. I had just binged all 3 seasons of the Pennyworth, and it's gone. And I really enjoyed it. It was a total different type of take on Batman, and we lose it. But guys did say we got 3 seasons. I guess that's all we can ask for. Hey, like I said again, you guys have a pleasant day.
He makes a lot of interesting points. Just a few of them I want to comment on. I think the interesting piece he's talking about is the cost of film and our expectations on what a film should be making. You know, we have some of these tent poles that are making big money, but that's not the overall story with film right now. We're having this one here, it's hit and run, right? So you'll have like this one major movie that'll hit, and then everything else is not doing as well as that major movie. What I'm thinking that they're really going to have to try and figure out is the cost of film and the profit, not just from theatrical releases, but streaming and what that looks like. I think that's why when you're getting announcements like in the beginning of our show, we were talking about how Disney's looking at distributing some of their stuff to other sources. I think you're going to start seeing more of that happening because of just that reason, trying to make sure you have profitability for these things that you're putting out. So, and I'm hoping that's the case because choice is something that we've come to demand. That choice is something that we've come to expect. This is a lot of the conversation we're having about streaming versus theaters, the same conversation we've been having for years about paper and digital. As far as what does that look like? What is considered a profitable comic book in the digital market versus the paper market? And how does that all work together? I think they're still trying to figure that out with streaming and theater. And it's an interesting time. And fingers crossed, I'm hoping that good projects are not thought of as failures because of them being more of a streaming platform property versus a theatrical property, and that there's ways to track what is considered a success in different media. And I think that's a hard thing to navigate right now because this is still new territory for us.
Well, yeah, I was just going to echo on that with again, we don't really know what goes on in the minds of these the companies and the movie studios. All we can do is guess by what gets made into the next one. Like you look at the Black Adam that was talked about, how Black Adam made money, but it didn't make enough money. Because what it looks to me, a lot of the studios, it's not just about turning a profit. It's about how much over the profit. Is your profit enough to pay for the next movie? Is your profit enough to pay for the franchise of the movies? You look at like all the Avatar movies; those things hit and they make gangbusters money. Now they cost extreme cost just because of. But if you have that up, if the next movie's already paid for based on the profits of the prior movie, then the next movie will get made. Et cetera, and it'll continue on, and that's how a franchise, really becomes a franchise. The Fast and Furious movies, you look at how many, we're at 10 now, I think.
Yeah.
10 is coming out. Every time those Fast and Furious movies come out, they make money. They don't make Avatar money, but they didn't cost Avatar money. They make enough that they can make the next movie, maybe a little bit over the next movie. So again, the studios are making a profit on that. So they're not only is the next movie covered, but the studio also made profit. All the actors, all the people involved in it paid off, made their money well.
They make big money. I mean, those movies do. Let's be very clear. They make big money. I mean, those are movies that are profitable. Not only profitable, but significant profit.
Yeah. And that's the thing that they look at, and that's the thing that we will never truly know. What is that index? What is that profit point? All we can do is kind of guess on it. And you and me, we're like, hey, if you make money, keep making it. Well, it's kind of like the ideology of us if we're living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, we're surviving, but we need that paycheck or we're in trouble.
Yeah.
The movie theaters, movie studios, they can't live paycheck to paycheck. They have to cover and then some. They've got to cover the current cost and then cover for the next movie so the next movie can get made.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that none of us will ever really know what is that price point. And, personally, I want to see everything, but that's not what we're going to get. And just like the streaming platform, I have no idea how profitable those are, but I'm seeing more and more movies, getting made, non-comic book, non-high special effects movies, being made, for the streaming platform. Whereas the stuff that has the more CGI, the more special effects, that kind of stuff that costs a little bit more, I see them in the streaming platform, but those are stuff that people eyeball for the big screen because you need the big screen money.
Right. Yeah. That's where it's an interesting time to see what that looks like. An interesting point he's making too, which I think it kind of is the same thought process. So we're seeing more of these miniseries come up as ways to launch characters or rework or repackage characters. We see it with Poison Ivy, where that's now going into... Actually, I'm really glad and encouraged by Poison Ivy going into being an ongoing. That John Kent could, for example, if it's successful, go into an ongoing. It's funny. I think he's right in the sense that traditionally we thought of as miniseries as being... these, it's kind of something lesser than an ongoing. But if you take a look at the source material they're pulling from for the movies, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, that was a miniseries. I think miniseries right now are starting to get a lot more notice as being these tight stories that are really well developed. So I'm going to be curious to see how that changes the landscape of how we roll out certain characters. And the ability to do follow-up miniseries and what that looks like. I think when you have the right creative teams on there, these miniseries are now starting to get some really spectacular notice. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what comics continue to look like as the year moves on and we kick into next year, even 2024. So we'll see. But thanks for calling in, and a lot of great points on there. Some of the things you and I have already talked about in depth, our thoughts on James Gunn and what's going on in our previous episode. But it's fun to hear. And please, anybody, feel free to call in, because I like hearing different thoughts on these topics, because we all have our own take on this and what we're feeling about it. And I'm really encouraged to hear that. And I want the podcast to be an open forum for that. Feel free to call in or email if you want to share your thoughts on the show.
Spinning with great speed, the Flash creates a protective vacuum around himself.
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. You prefer to contact us that way. RagingBullets.com is our show website. It feeds into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are proud to be part of a Facebook group community that really is an active participant in the show. That's where we pull all of our Speeding Bullets news from, and I want to thank everyone on the team over there that's posting artwork, pictures, news, links to Kickstarters, links to other podcasts, anything you want to post up there. It's a great opportunity for Jim and I to shout it out and comment about it on the show. And that segment's very important to me and doesn't happen without all of you. So thank you again for everyone that participates there. Active discussions over there. It's a great spot to share your thoughts on the podcast episodes and the content that we're talking about. The About Us section of the show website, which I've updated recently, and I'm continuing to update, it links to anywhere on social media. You can get to Jim and myself. It links to gaming platforms. Basically, we want to connect with you the way that you like to connect with others. So feel free to add us on to any of those platforms. Jim, we are sponsored as always by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have the Superman 78, Batman 89 box set. 50% off, only $24.99. And we have Teen Titans Go box set number 1, 50% off, only $14.99. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, just a reminder, their deals of the week. This time around, they have Swamp Thing from 2021, the Volume 3 trade paperback, Parliament of Gears. This is $16.99 regularly, 50% off, only $8.49 for 168 pages of content. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim and I are back and we're talking more comics. We're going to take a look at what's going on over at the Flash 1 Minute War storyline, and we're going to jump in on Detective Comics. We will see you next week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim. Jim. Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Jim,
Jim,
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.